Council meeting to order. We'd like to start by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples whose presence here continues to this day. Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge and thank them for sharing this land with us. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and of how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Kim, Councillor Gilliland, any comments or questions? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, call the vote. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have no community presentations, no delegations. I'll move to consent agenda, which is your sevens, everyone. Is there any items that were like pulled on the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion to approve 7.1 to 7.6 inclusive. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim. Call the vote. That carries. Next, we'll move to standing committee reports. These are your eights, councillors. Both 8.1 and 8.2. Are there any items that anyone would like pulled? Councillor Gilliland.
8.1.8, 8.1.9.
That's all?
Yeah.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. 8.1.7.
Okay. Anything else? Councillor Gardner?
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo?
8.2.3.
8.2.3?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Gardner, did you have another?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, 8.2.4, 8.2.7.
Okay.
Could you just tell me which one?
Yeah, 8.2.4. We deferred that to come back. So
Right.
I'm just wondering why you're pulling it.
I have a question. It says refer back to staff, but it doesn't give any particular details. So would staff be listening to the meeting for the?
My understanding is the staff have taken all the comments from council and will be incorporating that in the report that will be coming back to us in May.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
next
Mayor.
cycle, which is your May 3rd GC meeting. It will be back in front of us. Okay.
Okay.
So I will not pull that item then.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Gallo, sorry, I went back to Councillor Gardner. Did you have anything else other than that one item? Thank you. Okay, so council, I'm just going to go through them. I have 8.1.7, 8.1.8, 8.1.9, 8.2.3, and 8.2.7. Good. Oh, Councillor Thompson, sorry. Go ahead.
8.2.6.
8.2.6. Okay. Are we good? So can I get a motion to approve all other items minus the ones that have been pulled? Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gardner. Call the vote. That carries. So council will move to the first item, 8.1.7, which is, let me just pull it up, application for third-party event in an outdoor town facility, Aurora Palooza. The recommendation out of general committee was that report number CMS 22-017 be received. 2, that staff be directed to review and approve the Aurora Palooza application in accordance with the third-party events and outdoor town facilities policy. 3, that if the Aurora Palooza third-party event is approved, that it be designated as an event of town significance for the purpose of attaining a special occasion permit in accordance with the municipal alcohol policy. Councilor Gardner, you pulled this one. Did you want to move that?
Yes, I can move it.
Thank you. Second. Councilor Gilliland, Councilor Gardner, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did mention this last time. I'm wondering if we can pay special attention to the speakers that are around Town Park and the direction that they're pointed. And also, we want things to be loud, but I think we need to take into consideration the surrounding community. So volume as well. We had a problem a while ago at Aw Shucks. Their speakers were not adjusted, I believe, properly, and bylaw came and attended, and they were able to fix that so that the surrounding neighborhood was not so affected by the noise that was going on there. So I guess Ms. McDougall, there's a lot of research on this and how things should be positioned. And I mean, it's just really a lot of research. So I'm not an expert, but if you would be able to look into that and see if there were any improvements we could make on our sound system in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Will you be able to look into that, please?
Through Mr. Mayor, as far as the speakers and the speaker direction, firstly, Aurora Palooza is not a town event, so we can certainly provide guidance to the third-party operator regarding our requests for consideration regarding the direction of his speakers. As noted before, the band shell was situated with the idea that the speakers are facing out into the central area of the town park versus towards the streets and homes. So that's certainly something we can monitor and request part of their permitting. Regarding volume, there is an expectation, certainly the noise bylaw has expectation of any dealing with concerns or complaints, and volume or decibel limits is something that we, even in our town events, monitor. Again, we can encourage that with regards to a third-party operator.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you. And louder isn't always better, although sometimes the people in charge of the sound do think that. I'll also provide some research if I can find it on maybe how to moderate the sound a little bit for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. That carries. Next, we have 8.1.8, application for third-party event in an outdoor town facility, Community Craft Beer Festival Aurora. The recommendation out of committee is that the report number CMS 22-018 be received. 2, that staff be directed to review and approve the Community Craft Beer Festival Aurora application in accordance with the third-party events and outdoor town facilities policy. 3, that if the Community Craft Beer Festival Aurora third-party event is approved, that it be designated as an event of town significance for the purpose of attaining a special occasion permit in accordance with the municipal alcohol policy. Councillor Gilliland, you pulled this item. Would you like to move the recommendation? Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Kim, thank you. Councillor Gilliland, floor is yours.
Hello. Okay. Perfect. I just wanted a little bit of clarity on the second point through Mr. Mayor to Ms. McDougall. The original motion or resolution was that staff be directed to review and approve or deny the Community Craft Beer Festival in Aurora. And one of my concerns was because this was brand new to Aurora and we want to make sure that they are crossing their T's and dotting their I. I just wanted to make sure by way of removing the wordage or deny, does that take away the delegated authority from our staff to deny the applicant if they do not meet the criteria in the application for this event?
Ms. McDougall, I believe you wouldn't issue a permit, but go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to that specific motion as a third-party policy, with council changing the wording to approve, it would approve the event in its format, but we can still deny the permit if they fall under other provisions that do not adhere to our policies, internal policies regarding an event, such as not enough insurance, considerations regarding their security and so on, whatever's required that we stipulate. So there are different ways of still denying a permit. Technically, based on this revision and council approving it, it approves it as a third-party event, but there's still that the ability for us to deny based on what we are observing in our evaluation of the permit.
Council?
Thank you. So by the word of or deny being removed doesn't eliminate the delegated authority for Mr. Furman or whoever to say this event will not go forward because these criteria have not been met based on your policy. I just want to repeat that again, just for clarity.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. By stating approve, council is approving it as a third-party event. As a permit application to use a town facility, there are additional criteria we require that they meet. If they do not meet those criteria, we could deny the permit.
Councillor?
Which means that if they didn't get the permit, then they wouldn't be able to run an event. That's, yeah, I just wanted to kind of get to that point. Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify. I know we had discussed it and I wanted to have some clarity this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. That carries. Next, we move to 8.1.9 Sport Tourism Strategy 2022-2026. The recommendation out of committee is 1, that report number CMS 22-021 be received. 2, that the recommendations in the Town of Aurora Sport Tourism Strategy 2022-2026 be endorsed in principle, subject to council approval of budgetary implications. Councillor Gilliland, you pulled this one. Would you like to move that?
Yes, please, as is.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, floor is yours.
Thank you. I know last time we didn't get the presentation from all the hard work from this great report. And when I did go through the report, I wanted to give some mention to the fact that Aurora is hosting a provincial softball tournament, which I think is absolutely amazing. And I think it's really good to mention. Although I did want to ask through Mr. Mayor to Ms. McDougall if you knew which level of softball we are hosting for the provincials, which is a really big deal. And if you knew kind of the dates maybe that were booked.
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I don't have the specifics on me. I could find out and certainly circulate that to council.
Councillor?
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that's really great. And I think once we do find that out, I'm happy to spread the word because that's a big deal. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. That carries. 8.2.3. Application for official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment and site plan control 2766872 Ontario Inc. for 15296, 15306, and 15314 Yonge Street. The recommendation out of committee is that report number PDS 22-033 be received. 2, that the official plan amendment application OPA 2021-03 be approved. to 1, amend Schedule H, site-specific policy areas in Section 16 of the official plan to identify a new site-specific policy area with policies to permit an apartment building containing residential uses at or below grade and having a maximum height 23.54 meters, being 6 stories along Yonge Street and 8 stories at the building rear. 2, that Schedule A of the official plan to redesignate a portion of the subject lands from private parkland to the Aurora Promenade. And 3, that the zoning bylaw amendment application file ZBA 2021-03 be approved, including the proposed increase in height in exchange for the proposed community benefits as discussed herein. 4, that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment be brought forward to a future council meeting for enactment once an agreement has been executed between the town and the owner to secure the proposed Section 37 community benefits. 5, that the site plan application file SP 2020-07 be approved to permit the development of a 6-story residential apartment building with 136 units. 6, that the servicing allocation be allocated to service the development with 136 apartment units, 265 persons equivalent. Councillor Gallo, you pulled this. Would you like to move that? Someone like to move that? Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Gillan. Councillor Gallo, floor is yours.
Thank you. I apologize for bringing these issues up, although I'm consistent with the last time this came. I wasn't here last week to address them, and I'm going to attempt to address the issue of ground floor retail on this site. As we all know, our official plan mandates and our promenade study mandates ground floor retail, and this proposal has removed that in its current form. I'm not sure if anybody saw this or not, perhaps not, but they did submit to staff an analysis for the justification for not having retail. And I'll just read parts of it. There's 2 components that they relied on. The first one was commercial continuity, and the second one was existing commercial establishments. Commercial continuity, the area lacks commercial continuity along Yonge Street with many vacant properties. Currently, there are 4 vacant retail units located on Yonge Street north of Wellington. There are only 1 occupied commercial unit at Yonge and Wellington. The commercial spaces on the northeast corner, southeast corner, and southwest corner of Yonge Street and Wellington are all empty, and it goes on. This was, as they wrote this April of last year. There was an updated report, I believe in November, similar comments. But as I'm sure we all know, if those are the 2 points that they're hanging their hat on, they identified 7 properties within that area that were empty. As of today, and I took pictures, and I'm sure we all know, there's only 1 of those 7 that are empty. All of the rest of them have small businesses in them. To me, that says one of 2 things. Either what they're saying is incorrect, that there is the ability to, and we're getting over a pandemic, there is an ability to rent those units. And they're also, I guess, saying that adding more ground floor retail will add additional, I guess, competition for, I guess, in their view, limited businesses that would want to move downtown. I don't subscribe to that. My view of the official plan in this regard is I don't have an issue with amending an official plan if there is community benefit. And we've all said this across this table, that we work very hard to maintain our official planning documents because they're important to us. In this case, to me, the only benefit in amending the official plan is to the developer. There's no benefit to the town by removing that ground floor retail, which is a big part of our upper downtown, to make sure there's ground floor retail. I guess, very surface level compromise was that why don't we leave the zoning in place so that any future owners of those condominiums on that ground floor will have the opportunity to convert their units into retail. To me, it's a huge red herring. The chances of a residential unit that's not designed for commercial operations, the chances of that homeowner changing that to a commercial entity is virtually null. And maybe I can ask Mr. Munro or whoever can answer, are the ground floor retail, ground floor residential being designed as residential units, or are they prepped for a commercial unit like sprinklers, HVAC, everything else that would go into a normal HVAC commercial retail unit that we would follow under the Ontario Building Code?
Toronto?
To you, Mr. Mayor, I haven't seen the permit drawings yet, but I would imagine they are being designed as residential units. That's what the proposal is showing. The intent of keeping the dual zoning in place was to allow conversion at a future date. Councillor Gallo is correct. I mean, there'd be a lot of work involved in converting those, but the zoning would allow those ground floor residential units to be converted to retail at a future date.
Councillor?
And perhaps some of you haven't seen the ground floor plans. In behind those units is a corridor, and in behind and past that, going west, is the amenity space. Ground floor retail is going to require shipping, receiving, access to the back, so many things that you would require to able to convert those units. It's not enough just to have the zoning allow it. To me, it's almost better if you're going to go this way, don't even change the zoning, because there's no point. Nobody is going to, am I at my limit? Nobody's going to convert those. I'll go a second time.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I'll go back to Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did speak to this last week, although not to this particular issue. In my opinion, there are just too many unresolved issues. I was speaking last week about the water issue, but I think that Councillor Gallo has a very good point. You know, if we are going to amend the OP, there should be a substantial community benefit. And that just isn't here. I think this application needs more work, and I would like it to be referred back.
Any other comments? Questions? Otherwise, I'm out. What a Councillor. Oh, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gardner, I'll come back to you if.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno, actually, just to add a little clarity, because it was hard hearing you, apologize. Is there current infrastructure that is pre-installed within those ground floor units that would allow that conversion, or is it only written as a zoning change as it stands?
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the zoning would permit the retail, but the building, my understanding, will be designed at for the ground floor to be residential as all the other floors as well. So the building's being designed as a residential building. However, the zoning will remain in place to allow retail if that should ever be considered at a future date.
Councillor.
Thank you. And design is a pretty broad term. I understand that, you know, you can take down walls and move and shift things. I think it's the actual inside behind the wall infrastructure. So if there was that receiving or some sort of way of shipping, is there any specific way of converting to allow a shipment in the back? Is there something? I haven't been very specific to looking at the plans like Councillor Gallo has, but is that opportunity there or exist for that change or no?
Mr. Romano?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I don't believe that that would exist the way it's been designed.
Councillor?
Thank you. I wish I had caught that earlier. I get what Councillor Gallo was saying with the retail. I'm happy with the residential just because I know that we really do need the housing. But I kind of thought that it was with the opportunity to convert easily. It sounds like it's not an easy conversion. I really hope that's not the case. I'm not sure where you want to go with the resolution on the floor, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallo, second time.
And I want to be very clear. I have no issues with this development. I have no issues with the height. I think it's something that would be a huge benefit to that area. I probably said it before. I would have even entertained an additional floor to allow that ground floor retail. Not my preference, but there's, I think, 6 or 7, maybe 8 units that are facing Yonge Street. We either uphold our OP or we change it for community benefit. To me, ultimately, that's our goal, and that's what I stand for. And this, I just don't see a community benefit to this. This will be here for the next 100 years. And if we do allow the zoning, and if we think that someone is going to convert those into retail, then we have to mandate that they prep those units so that someone can go in there and rather easily convert those units into a retail space. Loading, sprinklers, ability for HVAC, all of the things that we would mandate a retail space today. If we don't, and if we leave it like this, we're basically saying those will never, ever be commercial spaces. And that's not our vision. That's not our plan. That's not what our OP says. That's not what the Promenade study says. So I don't know, maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to somebody that could maybe help in terms of if there's the will of council to address, maybe there's a compromise saying, okay, no ground floor retail, but you need to deal with those units so that they're easily converted, not just from a zoning perspective. How can we get to that?
Sure.
Is it a referral? It's too difficult to change that resolution. I started, but there's too many components in there that would mess it up. The unit count, if we removed the ability for them to have ground floor residential, the unit count goes down. It would be too many changes. So I'm looking for some help on how we can achieve that. If there is will of council, if there isn't, it is what it is.
So, Councillor, procedurally, you could refer it, as Councillor Gardner put out there, you could refer it back and have staff work with the applicant to achieve what you're looking for. Normally, planning decisions, the recommendations are in front of us. It's a yes or a no. Otherwise, it's a referral. So if you'd like to put a referral, to refer back to staff to have them look at this, and if council in the majority wishes to refer it back at this point, then that's the will of council. But that's procedurally, that would be the correct avenue to go if you wanted to do something as far as looking at how to change what's being put before us.
I have no problems with referring. I guess it would be important for staff, if we're referring, to maybe have the balance of council at least communicate not interested, or there's two avenues. There's two avenues, either say, no, you need ground floor retail, or, well, there's 3, keep it the way it is, or you need to prep those units so that they're easily converted. Those to me are the 3 options, but they're just coming out of my mouth. I don't know whether everyone else feels the same, and maybe there's some kind of a compromise in between there. But I'm happy to refer, and maybe I can hear from my colleagues on their opinion on it.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question about the referral. Are we in a time crunch here? If we don't give a yes or no decision?
Well, I think we're already past time limit as far as whether the applicant can appeal But ultimately, we all understand, we've been sitting here long enough, that our obligation is to make a decision. I mean, if we want to refer it back, then that's the will of council.
Thank you. Well, this isn't a new topic. It was discussed at previous meetings, and if we want to uphold our OP, I mean, I think we have strong ground to stand on if we refer it back.
Okay.
I would like someone's opinion on that, but if we're upholding our official plan, I don't see how we can go wrong with that.
Well, I mean, I could ask Mr. Sarah, but I already kind of know what she's probably going to say. She's going to say that, I mean, the tribunal will look at it from provincial policy, and they'll make their decision, and she really would know how they would, whether they would make the decision in favor of us or not. But I'll let her answer if she'd like. Mr. Sarah, do you know if we have a strong case or not?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, that's not something that I can advise on. The most I can tell you is that after this, the developer can appeal it, and then it would be up to the tribunal as to what they decide. And of course, we would come back with a report in closed session to figure out what council would want to do with the matter.
Councillor?
Could we approve it with a condition?
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe you could. It's either you either approve it or you refuse it, so that then the applicant knows what they can do. Because if they can't fulfill the condition, or if they are not agreeable to the condition, then they're stuck. So it's either just an approval or a refusal.
Councillor?
Thank you. Well, I'm going to be voting against it, but I would also like to say I don't like that the council is in this position so often, that we're at the wire or over the wire, and we're looking at a tribunal when what we're trying to do is just uphold our planning policy. So I sincerely hope in the future we are not there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, first time.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, I know this file hasn't been with you long, but have you or your staff had opportunities to speak with the applicant with regards to the concerns being expressed with ground floor retail, and what's their position and thoughts if this was be referred back to you and have further conversations?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I've had a discussion with the applicant, and it was always their desire, their preference when they submitted the proposal was to not to include the ground floor retail, because again, and they supported that with the retail market study. They don't think that in this instance, in this particular location, ground floor retail was going to work in this design and in this actual location. I think the applicant has spent some time in some of the revisions to the application to address some of the comments heard throughout the process. The application was submitted a little over a year ago. So I don't think the applicant would agree to revisions of that nature.
Councillor?
Thank you. Another question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno. With regards to community benefit and the information within the report, it speaks to, the bonusing for going above 5 stories and provides a value. But before going into that, just with regards to that comment about, when somebody makes this request to not have retail on the ground floor, that there should be some community benefit. Is there some way to monetize that and put that into the policy, just similar to doing the bonusing, that if they were to do that, they'd have to, provide some sort of financial incentive like we give them for going above 5 stories? Is there a way to do this?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Under the current policy framework, I think there probably could be a way, but I'll maybe ask our solicitor to jump in, because our treasurer, because the legislation is changing. Our current policy does include the bonusing provisions that speak directly to community benefits in response to an increase in height, and that's what what we're achieving here with the added increase in height. That 1-story bonusing, we are getting a cash value as per community benefits. Moving forward, it's something that we can certainly explore and even as part of our new OP update, to include additional policies or provisions with respect to, in the case like this, if there was another amendment to our official plan site specific policies, such as eliminating ground floor retail, it's something that we could certainly look into and address with respect to trying to achieve additional community benefits on an application by application basis.
Yeah, certainly,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to see us, look into that some more and give it some thought to about pursuing for future. Now, going back to the existing calculation for the bonusing, you talked about the fact that, because they're going above 5 stories, it's X, but is it actually based on stories or height? Because the interesting thing with this building is it's 6 in the front and 8 in the back. So if it goes by stories, you can make an argument that the bonusing should be based on the 1 story in the front and 3 in the back.
Romano?
To you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, in this instance, the upper downtown promenade, the as of right height is 5 stories plus the 1. So we're getting the additional benefits for the 1 story, and we determine that based on the Yonge Street frontage because of the slope. So it's true that from the north and west of the site, based on the grades, you're looking at a 8-story building, but those 2 stories are really considered below grade. So we take the average grade from Yonge Street in this instance. So it's 5 plus 1. It's a 6-story building. We're getting the additional bonusing for that 6-story.
And that's based on the value associated with that extra story, right?
That's right. An appraised value was done for that extra story based on the value of that additional floor space. And I think the amount that we're getting here is based on the 30% of the appraised increased value is $243,000.
Counselor?
Thank you. And perhaps again, something to consider going forward is to look at this as a case example and say, would that value be any different if instead of taking the average, you calculated it based on the extra 1 in the front and 3 in the back? Would it make any significant difference or not? And, again, it's just something for us for consideration, because I think whichever is most favorable for the town should be looked upon. That's it for me.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments or questions? Do you want to refer it? No, not yet. I was just giving everyone
That's
an
fine.
opportunity to have
Motion to refer.
to speak. Did you want to refer it?
Yeah.
Someone like to second that referral? Counselor Gardner, thank you for putting your screen on. Counselor Gardner, second it. Any comments or questions to the referral? Counselor Gilliland?
Thank you. Again, I just kind of wanted to know the actions taken from this referral. Is this going to garner a conversation with the developer and then come back to us? Or are they just going to say, you know what, like, we're out of here, we're going to the OLT? I just don't want to, I don't want to be wasting any time here if it's not necessary. I just want to know if this is going to be something that's beneficial at this point, having this conversation through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno.
Mr. Ramuno?
To you, Mr. Mayor, I mean, I can't really speak for them, but I think based on, they were here last week and the report that was presented with the recommendation, if council directed the report be deferred and for future discussion, I'm not sure that's going to change their mind at this point.
Counselor?
Thank you. And just a quick observation, as far as like a commercial retail, and if it was, you were going to change the zoning to commercial, you could, run a business remotely, maybe an office kind of a job, and that would be an easy conversion given the current design that we know of now. Is that something that would be easy to convert? Mr. Ramuno?
Mr. Ramuno?
To me, Mr. Mayor, I mean, again, depending on if there was ever going to be a conversion, a type of use, there'd be a change of use under the building code, and they would have to comply with the building code if they were going to change, an existing residential unit to like a live work unit. It could be retail, it could be office space. So there would have to be, building permit submitted and likely some work involved. No question.
Counselor?
Thank you. I appreciate that. We are where we are. I think it's a very unique zoning change. I appreciate that we want ground floor retail and have that ability to change as far as a design, and maybe that was something that was overlooked, but I'm really in support of this extra housing that we have. I know that we have a lot of retail surrounding the area. As much as I want to defer this, I just don't know if that's really going to change the mind of the developer at this point. I kind of feel like I'm okay with the way the design is now, and I would like to just vote against the referral.
Thank you, Councillor Kim, and then Councillor Gardner to the referral, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we've had this discussion in public planning and in GC earlier. And, we've had discussions on retail on many of the other developments that we've had. But just to the referral, there's pros and cons of retail on main floors. There's many cases where it can be successful, many cases it's not. For me, it's not a deal breaker, but we did make a decision in public planning and in GC. It may not have been unanimous, but we did, as a council, make a decision. I'm not sure that it sends a great message where we're doing a U-turn. With all respect, retail is not a deal breaker for me. So for that reason, I won't be in support of the referral. And besides, even if we did decide to refer this, it's going to go straight to OLT, and the result will likely not be any different. So I will not be in favor of the referral.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner to the referral.
Thank you. Following on the comments of Councillor Kim and Councillor Gillan, the reason that was given by the developer about not having ground floor retail was because there were so many vacancies. Now, we just learned, we probably could have known last week, there aren't that many vacancies, so that's no longer a reason. With respect to what Councillor Gillan said and what Councillor Gallo said earlier, could we leave the zoning on the first floor, on the ground floor? Could we leave that in place or make it a double zoning so that in the case that somebody does want to convert to retail that, may not require a lot of loading and unloading, etc., that it would be at least a possibility? Can we do that double zoning on the main floor?
Mr. Ramona, my understanding is it will be zoned that way. Yeah,
correct.
Councillor, it will be zoned to allow for retail.
Thank you.
Chooses to.
Thank you. That is good news. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson to the referral. You're on mute, Councillor.
Thank you. To the referral, through you to Mr. Ramono. Mr. Ramono, if the referral were to go through, and as you indicated, this file has been with us for essentially a year, and we really only had 90 or 120 days, whether it was the zoning or the official plan amendment, to make that decision. So they are in a position to go out to OLT. If they were to take it to the Ontario Land Tribunal, is there, I guess, a possibility or a risk that they could put forward their plans and not provide that community benefit, those dollars, and use the argument that, as a result of going to OLT, the additional costs, and so that's why they wouldn't be willing to provide that community benefit? Or is that stipulated in such a way that there would be no risk?
Mr. Ramona?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the way our report is worded in the recommendation is that the zoning is subject to a Section 37 agreement. So before council passes the zoning bylaw, we'll present the Section 37 agreement to deal with that bonusing. So that is a condition in place. So even if it goes to the tribunal, that condition is going to stay in place. I'm not sure how the tribunal would rule, and if the applicant would then try and make a case not to provide the Section 37 bonusing, but the report and the recommendation is conditional upon the Section 37 agreement and the bonusing.
Councillor?
So while it's, again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramono, so then while it's most likely it would still happen, the applicant could make that request or make that application, and ultimately it would be up to OLT to make that decision whether or not to grant it.
Mr. Romano?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, something you can certainly try based on a perceived delay, certainly.
Councillor?
You know, I think that at the end of the day, enough conversations have happened about retail. If the applicant really wanted to do it, they would do it. I don't see the referral changing it. I think we're back in the same spot, except for you run the risk of it just being pushed to OLT. And at the end of the day, we're long overdue to make a decision. And so if you agree that retail must be there, then you vote no. And if you can live with the application as is, then you vote yes. So I won't be in favor of the referral.
Councillor Gallo to the referral.
Thank you. I guess, disappointing to hear that looks like the majority of council is moving towards an official plan amendment and not adhering to our current official plan and promenade study, and not entertain a referral to ultimately what I hear is we're afraid of a developer, and certainly not what I stand for. And I've heard many times, many council members, Mr. Mayor, you as well, we're here to adhere to our official plan. And without repeating myself, I have no problems amending an official plan when there's community benefit. I don't see that here at all. Maybe I'm not shocked to hear that that's not the way others see it. Particularly because the arguments that this developer proposed, unless you know something that I don't know, have completely fallen apart. And I don't even know what you're hanging your hat on, other than scared the developer is going to fight this. Unless you don't believe that our official plan is true and that ground floor retail is necessary to create a vibrant landscape and streetscape, unless you don't believe that. And then I haven't heard that. I've heard a lot of, we're worried that they're going to take us to the task and that we're probably going to lose. I don't think we'd lose. But I don't blame you because of the information that you had previously, while in my view, weak and biased, because it's a developer who's generating a report to confirm why they don't need ground floor retail. To me, it's a referral back to staff to say, no, we're going to stick to our official plan. And we believe that's necessary because that's what we spent so much time on in the promenade and the official plan, that it's important to us. And it's a decision that's not going to change. You can say that the zoning may in the future change that. There's no way. There's no way that anyone will convert those units into retail. So ultimately you're saying, I'm afraid of the developer. We want this. Let's not adhere to our official plan and give them this benefit that has zero benefit that I've seen, and no one has demonstrated otherwise, to the community. That's what I see, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Humphreys, to the referral.
To the referral. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And while I absolutely appreciate Councillor Galvo's firm conviction of retail on the main floor, there's many other considerations when we're looking at each individual plan. And just because I'm not, totally in love with retail for this site doesn't mean I don't believe in the OP and that I'm afraid of developers. What I like to see is that we're providing appropriate housing in the appropriate areas of our town. And I'm sorry, I've seen enough empty retail on the bottom of apartment buildings and condos. It's a shame. This is north of Wellington. It's further out from our downtown core. I can't see anyone using those except for the people that live in the building, and they'll probably be using it conveniently when they want or heading out. We have other developments that are very successful. The townhouses, whether you believe it or not, everyone has their opinion, at Yonge and Wellington, where they wanted retail. Well, some wanted retail on the main floor and they didn't. I just couldn't see it there. And I just, there's certain things that we're need to focus on. And for me, our housing is an issue. We need to, increase that. But this development to me doesn't mean it's out the window because we don't have retail on the main floor. It has way more benefits than negatives for me. And I support it. I haven't changed what I said since the beginning of this development. And I don't believe it's fair to say that I don't believe in the OP and I'm afraid of developers. It's every development we look at is individual. It's not cookie cutter. It's not all the same. It can't be. Our OP is a guideline, and people around this table have to make our decisions in good conscience and hope that we're doing the best for our community. So that's all I wanted. I wasn't going to say anything because I'm repeating what I said the whole time on this one, but I just thought there's an opportunity now to state that. And again, I respect Councillor Gallo's position. I love it. I think it's great. But we all have our own opinions here, and we're doing the best for our community. And I believe this is appropriate development, and the retail is not a big issue for me.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions to the referral? I won't be in favor of the referral just for the fact that I believe that we need to make a decision. We're constantly hearing from the provincial government that it's our fault that things are being stalled. That it's municipalities that are the problem, that it's councils that are the problem. Referring this back when we know that the applicant has no desire to make that change, well then, you know what? Instead of saying we're afraid of the developers, how about would it be fair to say that we're afraid of making a decision? Let's make a decision. And absolutely, any councillor that believes that this is not right, vote against this. Let's make a decision. That's our obligation to the communities, making decisions on their behalf. And we're hearing it from the province constantly. They want to take away our powers to decide how our community grows. And here we are giving them a prime example of why they want to take those powers away. Well, let's stand up, make a decision, and show the province that we are adults and we can make those decisions. So I will not be in favor of the referral. Call the vote. That fails. Back to the main motion. Councillor Humphreys?
The question. I just want to vote. I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to talk about anymore.
I understand, Councillor, but I don't have a seconder to that, so I understand you calling the question, but if I had a seconder, I would. Is there any other comments or questions? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Thompson. I have two others that have spoken twice. No? All right, I'll call the vote. Yeah. Sure.
Correctly, I pushed the wrong button. I voted no when I meant to vote yes, but just for the record, leave it the way
Sure.
it is.
That's fine. Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Call the vote. That carries. Next, we have 8.2.6 financial system project update. Councillor Thompson, you pulled this. I'm just going to read the recommendation. Well, recommendation out of committees, the report number FIN 22-012 be received. 2, that the capital budget authority for the financial system replacement project 14012 be increased by 986,000 for a total budget of 2,486,000, and the project funding be revised as shown in table 1 in this report be approved. 3, that a transfer of 293,000 from the tax rate stabilization reserve to the information technology repair and replacement reserve be approved. You pulled this one. Did you want to move that, Councillor?
Yeah, I'm fine with moving the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Thompson, the floor is yours.
Through you to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel. Rachel, I apologize if this was asked last week. I wasn't at GC, but just in respect to the increase in the annual operating costs and the future tax pressure, it does say that that'll be mitigated somewhat by the retiring of our existing systems. But at the same time, in the proposal, it talks about the fact that bringing on this cloud-based solution will enable us to not move forward with a couple of projected future staffing costs. Staffing positions with a cost of around 180,000. Was that, I guess, perceived savings or the fact that we won't have to bring those positions on taken into consideration when looking at that future tax pressure? Because in some ways that could help mitigate that tax pressure as well.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, those two positions represent a cost avoidance of what we would end up incurring in the future if we continued on with the current systems that we have. We are over capacity right now, particularly with accounts payable. We're barely getting through with just the one person we do have. So if we did continue on with the processes we have now, with the systems that require a lot of manual activity, we'd be looking at adding another position. And the temporary position we have right now, we'd need to make it a permanent one because there's a lot of paper administration that's involved. This system will eliminate that paper administration.
Councillor.
So those tax pressure that comes from the increased operating expenses then will be somewhat also mitigated by the no longer need to hire those positions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To our treasurer, we discussed this last week, but if you could share with the rest of the council, in terms of the introduction of Smartsheet in 2019, when we were in the middle of investigating a new financial system, what was the reason for introducing Smartsheet? Was it to kind of be a bridge into the new system? And it wasn't a big lump sum fee, but it was more of a licensing fee. Is that correct?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in 2019, we moved ahead with Smartsheet. It was about $5,000 to implement and $20,000 annual licensing costs. We've gotten a lot of advantage in the work that we've done with Smartsheet. It helped us address a number of issues, particularly around reporting for projects and our project management tracking and reporting. We've been able to quickly adapt and use that system in the interim with very little time investment. We've also been using it for managing some of our obligations under the Construction Lien Act for prompt payment. And we've also been taking advantage of it internally in our capital planning process by using it to develop a model for doing our capital planning and prioritization to be able to decide which projects should come forward as part of the budget process. Taking advantage of that model and that development work that we've done in Smartsheet will make it easier for us to take that learning that we had for that small investment of money and time and implement that into the new financial system and have a good, robust solution to start with. So we know where we're going then rather than trying to figure it out while we're implementing the ERP.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, will the new financial system have the functionality of Smartsheet, or are we using Smartsheet in a complementary fashion with the new financial system?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Most of what we're using Smartsheet for today is, as I mentioned, relating to project prioritization, the Construction Lien Act, and project management. The new financial system will do all of that.
Councillor.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment. I think Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel spoke to me afterwards after a meeting last week, and I just, in terms of what this is for, it's extremely critical that we have the right tools when it comes to financial systems altogether, and the way we've been piecing the work together. I really commend the teams, yourself and your staff, for pulling together such great budget information. But to have all these systems that don't work together or communicate together is costing, I think, a lot more problems for all of us. And we have to be in a position, the corporation is so huge that we need to invest capital dollars where they're important. And I think from this perspective, the increased headcount, and it looks like it's temporary just for the duration of the project. They're not long-term through Mr. Mayor. Just want to confirm.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the project does include some dollars for salaries and benefits relating to temporary resources we'll bring on while we're actually implementing the project.
Perfect. Okay, so temporary just while we're implementing. Perfect. No, that's great. So then we'll see a decrease. It's not an ongoing expenditure. So I just want to say this is a long time coming, and I think we really, really need it. And the work that we've seen from our financial team has been really commendable. So looking forward for this for them, and hopefully can present some really incredible data, some business information that we, really struggle with sometimes, just to share with the residents. How are we doing? How does our bank account look? Are we in good shape? Are we in healthy shape? Are we not? And I think this will allow our staff to do this efficiently, effectively, with the right tools, and less manual manipulation, which we really need to get away from. I mean, it's not something you want to do in the financial area, just too many room for, errors and things like that. So I appreciate this, and I appreciate the type of solution you're going after. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner, then Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Gardner. I'm going to go with Councillor Gilliland first because Clerk already hit her mic. So Councillor Gilliland, go ahead. I'm going to blame it on you. That's right, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. In the report, you had also talked about how there's more cost savings with less manual labor and staffing. With this new system that we're utilizing, there's a lot of archaic work that is involved. So by this investment, is that in effect actually reducing the amount of staff time with this new upgrade?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's the two positions that we'd be avoiding bringing on in the future. But the thing is, there's also going to be opportunities for savings within some positions. Like, it's not like we're saving entire jobs, but we're going to be creating capacity within some roles. But it's going to change the work they're going to do. So instead of doing a lot of manual work, bringing information, cutting and pasting, validating, and doing that type of work, they'll actually be doing the analysis and getting more detailed analysis and better information that we can actually make decisions upon. So it's going to have a big impact on the type of work that finance can do and become much more analytical and provide more value add to the corporation.
Council.
Thank you. So from what I'm hearing is that it's really just converting these positions to become more meaningful, rather than if we were to stay where we are and be stagnant, then maybe you would have to hire more staff so you could do that analytical work because the current staff's busy doing their archaic work in the background. So in essence, it is saving on the budget in that sense, and it's best interest of our town to make sure that we have the system in place to do this analytical work and see where our shortfalls are and where our gains and successes are. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess through you to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. Every year we've been spending a lot of money trying to, fix this up. So when we spend this amount of money, and it is a lot of money, is that going to be able to put us in a good position for several years so that we won't see these budget requests every year?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, once we implement this system, we would not be looking at replacing it for quite some time. Oracle is a leader in the marketplace. They provide a very good solution, and they do provide a lot of automated technology and full integration all the way through our procurement to our payments, budget, actuals. It's all fully integrated. So we're going to see benefits from that for sure. And believe me, I do not want to go through it twice.
It's interesting because nobody asked any questions last week. So I'm glad we're talking about it because it is a lot of money and we weren't planning on spending it. So, but it does sound like it's sensible and required, and everything else has been mentioned at the table. So I will be voting for it. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions on this one? Oh, Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. Through you to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel. Rachel, you spoke to the fact that Oracle's a leader in the industry. As part of our due diligence, did we check with other municipalities with regards to them using similar systems provided by Oracle and get feedback? And if so, can you share some of those municipalities?
Ms. Mayor Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't speak to specific municipalities, but I can tell you through our procurement process, we do check references, and we did ask for other government agencies and municipalities as part of those references.
Councillor?
I'll assume those references were good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner, I'm assuming that's still from the hands up, still from the last time?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
Call the vote. That carries. Next, we'll move to 8.2.7, town-owned light standards for displaying banner flags at St. Andrews College. The recommendation out of committee, it was that report number OPS 22-005 be received, and 2, that St. Andrews College be authorized to continue to display its banner signs on the town-owned light standards that abut 15800 and 15900 Yonge Street in accordance with section 3.5 of bylaw number 5840-16 for 2 terms of 5 years each. Councillor Gardner, you pulled this in. Would you like to move that?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor?
No, I would not.
Councillor Gilliland, second by Councillor Humphries. Councillor Gardner, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I said that, in my opinion, this could be seen as advertising for St. Andrews, and we don't give that kind of advertising to any of our other businesses. I did have a look at a couple of the signs, and one of them says all boys grade 5 to 12, and the other says boarding and day school. I think that, to me, that is advertising, and I don't think that it's appropriate for it to be in our town standards unless we want to, light standards, unless we want to make this available to everybody else. So I will be voting against this, and I would like, I guess there'll be recorded votes anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphries?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. And yes, and I can respect Councillor Gardner's positioning. And though for me, it's just a special, significant, historic school. Very proud of it that we have it right here in Aurora. And it just seems like, for me, something very special. The other thing, just as a side note, it was pretty special this weekend at Town Park, not related to this at all, but that they had their
I'll let you stray
March
just a little bit, Councillor,
parade,
but I'm gonna
March.
hold you tight.
It was, I just happened across it, and it just reminded me of that when we saw this motion come forward, But thank you, I support it.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, has anyone else ever asked to do this? And if so, have we ever denied or not let them? Is
Mr.
there
Downey?
Any history of?
Good evening. And so the only other situation that I can recall through you, Mr. Mayor, is we used to put a banner across Yonge Street for the hoedown back in the day. But I don't recall any other opportunity to put banners specifically for a business. We would celebrate certain events perhaps, but not a business.
Councillor?
So just to be clear, no one has ever asked and we've never denied anyone.
Mr. Downey, I believe you're going to say no, but go ahead.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Councillor?
I have no issues with this. And if anyone else approached us and there was merit behind it, then we would entertain it.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Call the vote. Councillor Thompson?
Just took a while to come through.
Did it go through?
It's a yes.
It's a yes. That carries. So, Council, we are moving to motions. First up is a motion that I've put forward, so I will be asking our Deputy Mayor Kim to take the chair.
Would you like to move your motion?
I'll move as is.
And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Gillen. Would you like to make your opening statements?
Sure. Well, thank you. I mean, and I'll be brief. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We've seen many, I think, examples, not just in our municipality, but right across Ontario, even in Canada and even in other countries where speculation occurs, land banking occurs, and where we see where councils have made decisions where they've approved an application for a development to occur, and it just sits there, and it sits there, and it sits there, and sits there. And, with all the recent, things going on in regards to the housing crisis, and a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of blame being put on municipal councils for delays. We also have to look at the other end of the stick, that there's delays on the other end where units that are being approved are not being built quickly enough. In York Region alone, and I think I've mentioned this before, and I think it's been brought up that, how staggering the number is. There's 50,000 units that have been approved, and they're just sitting there right now. They haven't been built yet. And so, sometimes when you look at some of the properties, and I think when, there's examples that we can take from the town of Aurora, I can just name one. I don't want to start going through all of them, but one I think that we just dealt with just recently in George Street. That one, we saw that there was approvals, I think that was 4 years ago, I believe it was 2013, I think, or 2014, the original one. I mean, so when you look at that, if there was a sunset clause in place, well, they would have either had to have built it, or it would have, as I'm proposing that we put forward, that if the building permit is not issued within that time frame, that it is repealed, the zoning is repealed and reverts back to its original state. Now, what was the constant conversation around the table on that one particular item was that, would we look at that the same way if it was back to its original zoning? And I think a lot of times that's what we see. What happens is that councils approve an application, it moves forward, it sits for a while, property owner maybe decides to sell it at that point, and they sell it at a higher price because with the new zoning, with the approved, application that went forward, they get a higher price. Now the new owner comes forward and says, well, geez, I paid a high premium for this. I need to come back. I need a little bit more. And so now I'm going to ask for an amendment to what was already given. And now we're looking at it from the basis of what was approved in the first place, instead of looking at the original zoning for that area. And so I think that this is a problem. And I think that, if we're going to ask councils to step it up, make decisions, then we need to also look at the other end and say that when councils approve an application, approve a development, that the developer has a certain period of time to actually get out of the ground and build those units and get them on the market, preferably affordable, in a timely manner, just as we have to make those decisions in a timely manner. And if they don't, well, then the zoning repeals back and reverts to its original state. And I think that's only fair. This is not something that's being done right across the board. It's something that I know that many municipalities are looking to and want to do. Once again, we'll be at the forefront. We'll be leading the way in this. And I think we've taken the lead in many aspects when it comes to planning. And I think this is another example of us, hopefully, taking that lead, setting an example of how we want to continue to grow in an appropriate manner. And when we make a decision, we want it to be done. I'll just leave it at that to start with, Mr. Chair, and see how conversation flows around the table.
Just to start.
Got a lot more for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any comments or questions? I see Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two quick questions. The first, I mean, I think I know the answer, but I think I'd like to hear from Mr. Ramuno in terms of compliance. Does this fit within current planning documents? And are we allowed to be able to do this? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ramuno? Oh, sorry, I'm not sure. Sorry.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, to Council Gallo. We, as the mayor mentioned, will probably be one of the first municipalities. I think Fort Erie has implemented something similar with respect to holding provisions. I see this as aligning with our existing official plan policies with respect to our servicing allocation, lose it or use it or lose it policies. Especially considering the situation we're in now, Town of Aurora and the Northern York Region municipalities, we're constrained with respect to the amount of servicing we have. So this would, avoid or hopefully try and discourage developers from just sitting on that allocation and on approvals. So it's something that we can certainly do. There's nothing, and I've spoken to the solicitor on this, nothing in the act that says we can include a zoning a provision that states, within a given time period, and that's something that we'll have to discuss moving forward. Whether it's, I see it as being a minimum of 3 years, similar to our existing 3-year clause that we include for draft plan and subdivisions, that they have to be registered within the 3-year period. That's a clause that the policy that has existed for decades. So it's something that we can certainly do. And again, I see it aligning with our existing servicing allocation policies to ensure that approvals and applicants do not sit and on those approvals, specifically the allocation and banking that allocation, because we are running out, and I think council should have that ability to distribute that to applications, proposals that are ready to go.
Okay. The second one is I think an obvious one in terms of within a specified time frame. Who's determining that time frame? Is something going to come back? Is council going to decide? Is it a one-off?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So ultimately, it would be a recommendation when we go to public planning. A recommendation would come within that report, and council would decide that if they're agreeable to that time limit. Mr. Ramuno can elaborate as why they would need that flexibility depending on the application, but it would ultimately be council deciding on what's the appropriate time length. Okay, so it's flexible, but we would have that when an application comes before us. Absolutely. And make that decision. Okay, I mean, I'm in support of this. Looks like we already have something already in the books that's similar to this, but it expands it, and it codifies it, especially when applications come to us. There's no ambiguity in terms of how much time a developer has to move forward on their project. So it makes sense to me.
Thank you. Just quick comments. I think it's a great idea. We certainly don't like the idea of people land banking, holding on to things with a different zoning change. My questions were answered about the timing and how council was going to be involved and how it was going to be presented at that time. So at least we can understand what those changes are when they are presented, because I imagine it will be pretty site specific depending on what the project is. I just didn't know how that was going to be managed. So appreciate that clarity.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I'm certainly in support of the motion. We've talked about this off and on over the years. I think we've all, for those of us that have been on council for some time, we've seen applications come around more than once. Certainly, this term, there's a couple that we've saw back in the first term, my first term of council between 2010 and 14, and then come back around again. And I know the mayor alluded to it, to the point where, you make those changes or provisions or concessions, and then, they wait until the next year of council or next term and or subsequent, and it comes back because perhaps the property's been sold or there's been some ownership changes. And so the ask continues. And so I think, it's good to have the ability to say, listen, you've come to council, you've asked for this proposal to make these changes, and you need to move forward with it. You just can't sit on it and wait until a better time or opportunity comes out. I wish we would have done this sooner, but I fully understand that, we're going to be at the forefront of this. And I think that in this case, it's great to be leaders and to put this forward along with, I hear Fort Erie, it may or may not get challenged, but I think it's the right thing to do. We look at our planning list. I haven't seen it in some time, but, the last time I saw it, there were, 70 applications in various stages of the process. And, some of them, they sit there for year upon year. And so I think, we do need these kind of tools to move things along because, when somebody comes to us to make these changes, it's on the understanding that they're going to build something. And so that's how we're dealing with it in good faith and with the expectation that they do as well. I think my only concern, and just from hearing the conversation, is about, the time limit being flexible and being something that council will dictate. At the end of the day, it's got to be something that's defensible. I mean, this is something that whether it's legally or through the OLT will get challenged. And so, I like what Mr. Ramuno said. We have a policy that kind of could be mirrored, whereby it's in relation to a 3-year period. I just think you're better off probably having more of a fixed term or something that is consistent and defensible. But I'll leave that to our solicitor and our director of planning to figure it out when they come forward with a recommendation. And other than this, great. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was the same as Councillor Thompson's, in that we should have, we've used the language specified or given time frame for servicing allocation. So I think that it's a good idea to certainly have that specific time when it comes forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This it's nice to be a leader. Thanks.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, all my questions have been answered. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward.
The discussion about build out rates, the gap between the granting of permits to the build out of the development, the discussion's been going around for decades. Many of the reports that I've read does not indicate that developers are necessarily land banking. A large portion of that is an economic decision in terms of what point in the economic curve do you start building out, because you certainly don't want to build out in the top of the curve and have economic ramifications of that. In principle, I am in support of the motion. There's a lot of positives in it, but my concern with all policies is I'd rather have a partnership or incentivization type of policy where you incent builders to build out at their stated timelines, as opposed to a stick policy where you're forcing them or penalizing them if they don't use it. A couple of concerns that came to mind as I was listening was that developers come in all shapes, or not shapes and sizes, but different scale and sizes, and that you have some very large developers, and you also have a lot of smaller builders and contractors who are more economically sensitive to a policy like this, which I'm concerned about, because if a smaller developer buys one lot or 2 or 3 lots and the economy turns around, they have to build out by a certain time frame, and our policies are not sensitive enough to it, and we force them to build at a certain price point where they're not going to be able to even break even. you have to be concerned about those small businesses as well. They're mom and pop businesses that they try to make a living off in a smaller scale than larger developers. So, that's a concern that I would have. Another concern, an economic concern, is that we all know that when land goes from one zoning to another, there is a value increase on the property. We know when a land goes from employment to residential land, often the land value goes up double or more. And if we were to say that you have 3 years or 5 years to use it or lose it, and all of a sudden that value goes back to its original zoning value, I would imagine that that builder, whether they be large or small, will have a lot to lose. So, those are the concerns that I have. And, I think in principle, I'd be in support of this motion. But if Mr. Ramuno and staff would go back and consider these concerns, and, is there a way that we can incentivize builders instead of, using the stick? Because in the end, we have to partner with them to make sure that they build the right, the product that we want them to build. And have a good relationship from the start. So those are my main concerns. And but I'll be in support of it. But I hope that staff will take those considerations when they come back with their final report in planning. Anyone else for a second go around? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't think of those issues worth considering. The other one, that when this comes back, will there be some sort of consideration if, and we're not talking about flipping, but when developer buys the property and then they sell it and it's, and obviously not intent to flip, will we be showing the second owner any particular leeway with that? Just something to consider. And I think I can ask this question. Do we have policy now that speaks to flipping? Because it certainly has happened where, we improve a property by zoning or whatever, and it gets flipped almost right away. Do we have anything in place?
Councillor Gilland put a point of order, and I would agree that.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know whether I could ask it. I'll ask it under new business. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Gardner?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, no other comments or questions. I'll leave it to the mayor to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And some great conversation around the table and some good suggestions on possibly what we can do to make sure that this is a new bylaw, new policy that that works for the municipality, but also gets where we want to go with approvals moving forward. Ultimately, I think that this wouldn't impact necessarily how things would get built, because I think that that's what we have public planning for. The application would come before us and we would decide whether that application is proper, is the right thing for our community. And we see it all the time. We just dealt with one tonight, and we decide as a majority whether we want to move forward with that. Now, this policy would get triggered, obviously, and this bylaw would allow for them to have a certain amount of time. I think through my conversations with Mr. Ramuno and with Mr. Serio, we were looking at a 3-year minimum, which seems a reasonable time frame and a defendable time frame from a tribunal perspective, if that was to ever be challenged. If a property is to be sold, I think it would be sold with the knowledge that the town does have this bylaw in place, and that if we're selling this property, there's that ultimate chance that the zoning could get repealed and revert back to its original state, which means that the value of the property would go down and you would start again from the beginning. Now, it doesn't mean that you have no chance to come back. You get to come back. It just means you have to start the process all over again. That's all it means. And the council of the day will decide now, For all we know, maybe there is a even different type of application that would be better at that time. But what we're saying is that, and we've talked about it a couple of times, and I remember there was an application last term, and I think that the councilors that were sitting here, if you remember, the application came before us. It was asking for zoning changes, and they had literally put up a for sale sign that day, and we said, we're not going to entertain this conversation. Go back when you sell the property. Let the new owner come back to us and ask for what they want to develop and what they changes they want, and then we would look at approving it at that time. We're not in the business of approving zoning changes to upsell the land. That is not the business that we're in. And so I think that that's what this speaks to, is to make sure that it holds them accountable, make sure that it holds them to move forward in a respectable manner that respects our bylaws, what we want to see, how we want to see the community grow. And so I do feel for those small businesses that were mentioned, if it's a smaller developer that's looking at doing one house. But what I would say to that is, knowing the industry, and I think that there's a few others that know the industry that are sitting here, most of those smaller businesses, smaller builders that are coming before us looking for a zoning or a zoning change or an OP amendment, they're ready to go. They're ready to build as soon as they get the approval. So I really don't see this impacting them. This is, and you know what? And you're right. There are a lot of good people that come in here and develop it within our community and do some good things within our community. But at the same time, there's those few that hold on to it, do the land banking, look at upselling the land value so that they can create their profit. And you know what? Good on them. That's their problem. But we need to stop that, because that's not in the benefit of our community. And I think that's what this does. So I appreciate the comments around the table. Hopefully I appreciate the support. We'll see how it goes. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we'll call the vote. Councilor Gardner? You're on mute.
Sorry, I'm not seeing anything on my screen, so I vote yes.
Thank you. Okay, that carries unanimously, and I'll pass the chair back to Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kim. Council, move to the next motion. Councilor Gardner, this is your motion in regards to Black History Month 2023. Would you like to move your motion?
I would. I'd like to also read it.
Sure.
I need a seconder.
I'll get you to read it first, and then I'll get a seconder, but go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Whereas Canada has designated February as Black History Month, and whereas the town of Aurora endorsed York Region's Inclusion Charter and supports the goal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and whereas the town of Aurora approved a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that council directs all of the applicable departments to come together in consultation with local community organizations to support and promote a program for February 2023. And I do have an amendment. If somebody seconds this to begin with.
Someone like to second it? Motion? Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Councillor Gardner, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Black History Month was declared as a federal month. Not only, it was declared in Parliament, and it's relatively new. I think it's a few years old, but I think it's very important. And I would say, though, that unless we give it some sort of a budget, it's going to be very difficult for staff to do any programming for it. So I would like to make the amendment that an annual funding commitment be made starting in 2022 And the reason for 2022 is there's an election and we won't get to our budget. Well, I don't know, January probably of 2023. And Black History Month is in, it's February. So I think if we're going to take this seriously, we should commit some sort of money towards it before the election so that it can go forward smoothly. So especially that staff has the time to plan it and knows what their expectations will be.
Do I get a seconder for that amendment? You'll second it for discussion, Councillor? Okay. Councillor Gallo will second it for discussion.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Well, that we don't know. Councillor, can you just repeat your amendment just so the clerk can have it?
Yeah.
I wanna make sure we have it correct.
Thank you. I didn't do a very good job of it. That an annual funding commitment be made starting in 2022. So
Okay.
it means that we would have to say we're going to put X amount of dollars towards it so that staff can do the program. Thank you.
That's fine. You got that? Okay. Thank you. So, you okay, Count? Anyone else to the amendment? Yeah. Councillor Gallo?
I don't quite understand it. What are we funding? And I guess, do we already have funds available for these types of events? Because we certainly, at least this year, we certainly had events regarding Black History Month. So there must have been some money behind it. I'm trying to understand what it's for specifically. And further to that, do we already have money allocated for this?
Yeah, Councillor, I'm going to go to Ms. McDougall
Sure.
and let her answer. Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. With regards to the existing program delivery and activities that we did, we obviously managed that through an existing budget. And certainly from a third-party support, we do have existing granting and sponsorship opportunities for a third party to access. So with regards to this amendment to the motion, I just want clarity of, if I may ask the question, if the funding is an allotment towards town delivered programs or available to third party to access. And if so, that's a whole nother granting program that I create. So I just want to be clear.
So, and if I get the sense, because I know that Councillor Gardner did speak to me ahead of time, so I do have and Councillor Gardner, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to get what your thoughts are out across everyone. Is that that this is town-led events, not third? And I see Councillor Gardner shaking her head yes. So it's about providing funding for town-led events. Now I'll make my comments as well, but Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, could I continue?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that point. Go ahead.
And I would have asked the same question, so thank you for. It's probably everyone wanted to know that answer. So the rationale for doing it now specifically for this is because of an election next year, and we probably won't have funding available until the next council approves its budget. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much. Well, my remembrance is that we just get started in January, and I mean, February is Black History Month, so it just seems to make sense that we decide if we want to put some money towards this for town programming. I'm not sure what town programming we did this year and what money that cost. And certainly community members may want to do things. I think it's $1,000 upset for a grant if somebody from the community comes forward.
I just wanted to know that answer.
Okay, sorry.
The timing of it and the rationale for doing it now.
Thank you.
Well, I'll listen to others, but I think this needs a little bit of work and a little bit of refining, but I'll listen to others.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Gilliland. To the amendment, please.
Yeah, just to be clear, are we just speaking just to the amendment, or did the whole motion get seconded?
Just to the amendment. At this time, just to the amendment.
Did the main motion get seconded and put on the floor?
Yes, it did.
Okay. So I guess to the amendment, and thank you for the clarification from Councillor Gardner that this is a town-led and town-run event. I guess with respect to the budget, we don't typically get into those details. Like, I don't remember us setting the budget for Canada Day. I don't remember setting the budget for Ribfest. I don't remember setting the budget for all kinds of different events that we do. We just, kind of give direction to staff and have a special events bucket that we do certainly approve. And, I'm sure that if council were to pass this motion and give this direction to staff to say, listen, we want to have some events, we want you to go plan it. I'm confident in the capabilities of Shelley Ware and the entire Robin's entire team that they will do a good job, as they've always done with various events and engaging the local community organizations. But if we wanted more details on what they're planning, I would suggest then just ask staff to come back with some ideas or report of what they're planning to do for Black History Month in 2023. I don't know if we have to set a budget for it today. I'm confident in the capabilities of staff to be able to, take the direction to implement something and go with it from there. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor to Ms. McDougall. I guess I almost asked to say the same comments as Councillor Thompson. The question I would have is, currently we do have a budget I'm gathering now for events, and they're constantly changing and evolving. And if you could just kind of shed a little light on, how, you go about changing kind of maybe the way events are evolving to reflect diversity and culture within the current budget we have. Is that something that you could just expand on?
Google.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that is actually how our staff, we obviously have standard events annually that we run. The content of those events and how they're delivered, we do look at trends. We look at important issues. We look at certainly cultural support and diversity within our events, and we amend where we can. So we stay within an existing operating budget, but we might adjust to ensure we're celebrating how and what the community feels is important at that time. As an example, just this past Black History Month, Shelley adjusted an Arctic Adventure event and held something very specific to Black History Month. So therefore, she was utilizing her own existing budget. And it was on Family Day. She adjusted an activity, so it's centralized and was focused to celebrate Black history. So that's just an example of how our team would monitor and adjust an existing initiative within the means we have to ensure we do our best to celebrate all diversity throughout the year. I think it answers your question.
Councillor.
Thank you. And just to follow up, and it did mention the motion about our diversity and inclusion charter and our reports and everything that came back. So I'm assuming that within that new plan that was accepted and approved by council, that it also directs staff to host these events in specific to diversity and culture within the budgets that we have. So if we did need a new budget to increase to facilitate these events, that would come at our next budget if that's the case.
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly with the approved plans and direction for staff to look internally at our programming and delivery of events, we wouldn't do our best to adjust anything that we can within the current means. If we feel there's something that really can't be done and we need additional funds to deliver it, yes, it would become a budget request.
Councillor.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions to the amendment? Councillor Gardner, second time.
This is a new event, in quotes, where, we're not talking about something like Canada Day that's been going on for so long, and we have a lot of money planned into that budget. And it's not something like Ribfest that actually makes some money, or we always hope it makes some money, although perhaps not always. I just want to make sure this, to me, this is a very important recognition of Black culture and Black contributions. And it deserves to be recognized. And it, in my opinion, hasn't been given enough recognition. So I just want to make sure that there's room in the budget. We don't have to take money away from something to give it to this. If we can, that was a great idea that Ms. Ware had about incorporating it to Arctic Adventure. There's lots of families that are out for that, but there's never enough money. And I just want to make sure that this important month has a little budget to be celebrated, with really celebrated. So that's where I'm coming from with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, second time to the amendment.
I'll wait for the main motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gallo, do you want to go second?
Through to staff. We certainly program Black History Month. We have a task force that deals with and it gets involved, I'm going to assume, with that program. We have a very active community out there that also does a lot. If this money is for a staff-led event, I guess my question is, do we already have the money in place to deal with whatever scope we decide to celebrate Black History Month? Because if we do, then there's no point to this. If we don't, then let's deal with that.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Additional funds towards events are always welcome. I'm always leery about adding events, knowing of the staff resources I need to be around to support expansion. And as you know, they're extremely a busy team, and every year there's more and more activities being asked of them. So by the example that was done for Arctic Adventure was a good one, because it was an existing event. It was one where we could utilize existing resources and funds to support a local initiative and an important factor, but yet not ask for more funds. For me to provide you a budget figure and ask, obviously I'd have to go back to my team to get an estimate, but at the same time, it might be hard to rationalize how much this event needs compared to another cultural supported need in the community when it comes up. So I'm sensitive about putting a dollar figure on something. It'll be very quickly perceived as either not enough, or if this one gets that value, there'll be another one wanting the same value. I'm just very sensitive about actually putting a figure to a particular group. Unless council is comfortable with that, I'm happy to run with it. I'll happy to create a program and an event around that. But for me to create something for you to be comfortable with, I'm concerned a little bit.
Councilor?
And Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that, because and I wasn't expecting to speak about this because it was a last minute addition to it, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. So to me, I don't see an urgency tonight to deal with this. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. I think we're all on the same page. We want to do the best we can for the community and for Black History Month. There's no question about this. It's the approach and how we go about doing that. And if it was part of the original notice of motion, perhaps I would have put a little more thought, and perhaps staff would have, and we all would have put a little more thought on that. It was thrown at us. So I'm at a bit of a loss in terms of trying to make sure we're making the right decision.
Thank you. Joy?
Oh, Councillor Hopkins for the first time.
Okay, I didn't see. Okay, Councillor Humphreys, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, exactly. To Councillor Gallo's point as well. I'm trying to think about how this all fits, and I think one of the things that was through Mr. Mayor, maybe for staff when they're looking at this, if this moves forward this evening, to take a look at and do also a review what we did this year, all the events, all the partners we worked with, you know.
To the amendment.
Oh, the amendment.
The
Yeah,
amendment
because
is in regards to just funding.
but about the funding piece,
Yes.
like, you know, and do we have to worry about this? If it's a town led, at the end of the day, it's already got budget against it. I don't know. I'm being repetitive. Thanks.
Councillor Gilliland, second.
Thank you. Just some quick comments. I appreciate the comments around the table and I agree, Councillor Gallo, there are some unanswered questions that, you know, we all still kind of want to figure out and iron out as far as, you know, where those shortfalls might be, if there are any. I mean, I would like to throw more money at events all day long. They're fun, right? So, which I think is great. But I guess, you know, through this conversation, maybe down the road, because I think there's more work to be done. And through you, Mr. Mayor, and Ms. McDougall, maybe the approach is doing a review of our cultural grants and, you know, making it more accessible for these specific events where we are collaborating with other partners. Because clearly, you know, for us to do it all, sometimes we do have to reach out to other organizations as well. And I was hoping maybe I can get your insight on that.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarity, we do, our department administers a grant, culture and recreation grant. Total of $14,000 annually is provided and is available to local organizations to apply for at an upset limit of $1,000 per year. And in that in itself, again, is limited 3 times within a 5-year span. It's an old grant program, grant criteria definitely could be looked at and revamp that evaluation of the criteria, how it's administered, the funding allotment of what can come out of it. Keeping in mind it is $14,000. It's still a limited budget, so it may need an increase if more and more are interested. But it has been on a regular basis underspent on an annual basis. It's not, groups are not pursuing it, and maybe it's because of the limitation of $1,000. That wouldn't go very far for an organization. So to your specific question, it could be reviewed and definitely be evaluated, keeping in mind it was supporting for both culture and recreation. We've had a variety that have come forward.
Councillor?
Thank you. And, you know, perhaps that's something that we've learned coming out of this is that we need a review of this. So it does make it easier for people to apply and get grants to put on some, give assistance to the town to be running at some of these great events. But, you know, at this time, talking now and adding some to a budget, we haven't really had the conversation or knowing what's entailed. And if we have a budget already for the cultural sector, I think there's, we're kind of jumping the gun here, not really understanding the need or the ask at this point on staff level. I'll leave it to my colleagues to, I guess, comment to that and what they think.
Councillor Humphrey, second time to the amendment.
I'm going to do you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to keep it to the amendment. In terms of funding and opportunities, there's also another grant funding that
Through
we
the
also
communications department.
Right.
Yes. Sponsorship.
It's a sponsorship, grant sponsorship as well, which is a little bit different and a little more flexibility, and it doesn't have an upset limit. I think it's a qualification process. I believe that's being reviewed as well. So yes, when this goes back, there's lots of things to consider. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions to the amendment? Councillor Gardner, second. I thought did she speak twice?
Am I allowed to wrap it up?
You only spoke once, Councillor Gardner. Clerk's telling me you only spoke once. Go ahead.
I want to thank everybody very much because I was trying to get this, to figure out a way to get this into the motion because I think these kinds of conversations are very important. And it's just a strange kind of cycle where we won't be able to have a budget in time to decide about this. And I didn't think of it in time for the 2022 budget. So thank you. I appreciate everyone's feedback.
Thank you. Before I call, I'll just say I think that normally I think what most of us are expecting. I mean, first of all, I'll say that I think that all of us believe that we should be putting on some events in regards to Black History Month. That it should be, that we should be doing a lot for it. I think that staff did a great job this year, as well as working with our partners and outside or third-party organizations in regards to putting some things together. But in regards to the funding, I think that I'd like to see, and I think normally, I think what all of us would like to see, and what I'm hearing around the table is staff to kind of maybe come up with that list of what they would like to do, and then for them to say, I think we might need X number of dollars to do this list that we're looking at doing, and come back to us and then have council decide whether we would like to move forward, knowing now what staff have decided to put on and do as a town for Black History Month. So I think that's probably the best way to go about it, instead of just saying provide funding. I mean, ultimately, and no offense, Councillor Gardner, but we don't know how much in this amendment. We don't know where it's coming from. We're just saying, let's just provide funding. And so I think that's just a little bit too generic at this point. I think if we, like I said, if we get a list of those events of how we're before, and maybe we can do it within our existing budget. We don't know yet. And I think staff don't know yet. And I think they need to go back. And I think Ms. McDougall has mentioned, see, can staff do it with the amount of staff that we have? Do we need more resources? What is it going to take for us to put on these events? And then let's come up with a number. And I think that might be the proper way to go. And I do get the fact that Councillor Gardner, that we're in a bit of a weird year. Yeah, you're right. We won't be dealing with the budget until 2023, probably at the beginning. But I think that this is something that could come in as an ask if staff have decided what we're going to do moving forward, and it can come to council even in September. I don't think it's something that's that big of a number that if it did come in front of us, that council, even though there's an election, couldn't decide on. So I'll be against the amendment for those reasons, but I'll call the vote. That fails. It's back to the main motion. Councillor Gardner, did you want to finish up what you said?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. We do. I did want to enable staff to have enough time to work together. As you see, the applicable departments. There may be more than Ms. McDougall's department. There are more than Ms. McDougall's department. Time passes quickly, and I hate to say this, but February will be here before we know it. So with respect to planning events, it's so that's my intent, that what you said, Mr. Mayor, about we all want to do something let's say important for Black History Month, to honor its significance, and that's all I'm trying to do with this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, and I certainly support the motion. And Councillor Gardner, I agree. It is a significant event. It is good to add it to our list of events and things that we want to do. And I applaud you for bringing it forward. Although, as I said earlier, I like the idea of rather having staff come forward with a plan of action for us first, and then figuring out whether enough additional money needs to be allocated to it or not. Let staff plan it out first, and then we at least have a sense of what's being asked for. And I also like the conversation around the cultural and rec grants. Perhaps it is time to revisit that and look, now that we have, as indicated, adopted and endorsed the region's inclusive charter and approved our own diversity and inclusion plan. Perhaps it is time for us to revisit that cultural and rec grant and look at either increasing the funding envelope or looking at the criteria around it so that we can assist a lot of the various organizations that are out there in the community. There are a lot of them that are doing good work, supportive of the same goals and initiatives that we are. And if we can support their cause, then great. So, perhaps Ms. McDougall can look at bringing something forward, or just give it some consideration and perhaps add it to the budget cycle, and council next term can determine whether or not they want to increase the funding envelope. But we don't have to do it all, but we can be supportive of everybody else that's out there as well. So I like the comments and the discussion around the table, and I'll be in support of the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, certainly, we all acknowledge that February and Black History Month is a significant event, not just in Aurora, but throughout the world. And certainly for us and staff to acknowledge this month, and to acknowledge Black Canadians who've made significant and notable contributions to the building of our nation is worthwhile. So I'm in total agreement with Councillor Gartner, and I would support the motion that staff work with other departments within the town and with local resident groups to plan for February 2023. So I'm in complete support, and thank you, Councillor Gardner, for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, it's been said, it's a very significant, important date, a month. And, this year, I think, was dubbed February and Forever. So more emphasis, focus to celebrate in February and continue throughout the year with reminders and continuous information. So everything else has been said. I'm looking forward to the report. Thank you to Councillor Gartner for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
I don't think we're getting a report back, but just through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, what does this mean to you? I think we're already doing this, but I'd like to know what council directs all applicable departments to come together in consultation with local community organizations to support and promote a program for February. What are you going to do if we didn't have this? Would anything change?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure much would change. Admittedly, I think this puts a little more emphasis, on the Black history topic of the group. We do meet as a collaborative group of staff, working group. We've in fact met regarding Black History Month for next February to initiate the conversations regarding some planning. I think this just puts a little bit more expectation, clarity of what council would like for us to do. But again, we are following what we believe in the DEI plan for us to amend and look at what we deliver already and how we can change a little bit, adjust what we do currently to support the DEI plan. But in addition to that, supporting local organizations. The area of cultural diversity, cultural inclusion support is really evolving and expanding even as we live it in the last few years. And therefore, we've adjusted our ways already. I think this is just another opportunity for us to enhance what staff are working on. I'll say, I think it's a benefit. I just think we are there. I think this just reinforces the message, how important it is.
Council.
Thank you. And that's helpful. The reason I ask is because, this is lovely. I think we're doing it already, to be quite honest. And if we want to put an exclamation mark behind it, okay. And I'm okay with that. What I don't want is we move forward with this and we still disappoint. And I'm not sure if we're achieving that because it's not very specific. And we're going down a path that I think we'll get into some trouble. I would prefer that this was much more specific in directing staff specifically on what we want. And maybe to some others saying in terms of a program, it was Councillor Thompson, a program, something, because yeah, we can all support this. That's great. But are we really moving the ball forward? And I'm not sure we are. I'll support it and we'll go forward, and that's okay. But I think more needs to be done.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gartner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This wasn't done as a nice to have. This was done because I'm not sure, apart from, and perhaps Ms. McDougall can tell me, we had a flag raising. Some members of the community spoke. They spoke a little more than it usually happens at a flag raising. But I don't know if the Janiver had any other events planned. So I'm remiss, none that I know of. The Arctic Adventure one, I wasn't aware that there was an extra component to it this year. So the purpose of this is to have the town, to have council stand behind more than a flag raising. And if that was done this year, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of it. And then I apologize. But I'm hoping that this motion will ensure that there is some planning, and I'm sure it's new. Hopefully it'll change and expand possibly every year. I just want to make sure that we as a council have something in place that we can stand behind and say, yes, we think Black History Month is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gallo hit it on the nail on the head, because it's an ambiguous motion right now. It's saying to come together and work. And I know through my engagement and involvement with some of the third-party organizations and our own staff, there was lots of engagement and involvement. It may not appear that way to many of us who don't know exactly what went on. So I think I referred to it earlier, and maybe we can add some to this motion if there's a will, that staff come back and provide a report on the efforts and the events that were hosted by the town, events in partnership, because there was a lot of work done. And I feel that that maybe we need to understand what the programming was this year and where the opportunity for growth is next year. And maybe that's where we need to start, because it's true. It says all applicable departments come together in consultation with local community organizations, support and promote the program. But because we're not really, staff feels they did it already. They've done this and they continue to do this. So I would love to ask if Councillor Gartner would be willing, and if it's not, and I love staff's input as well, would they mind coming back to provide an overview of what was done this year and plans for next year? And maybe there we could find where we're at. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but I just feel like we need to know where we stand today, who we worked with, exactly what we did. I mean, and then move forward. But I have to ask if this is even appropriate that I'm suggesting this.
So Councillor, I'm going to go to Councillor Gilliland first, but
Sure.
Because there's a lot to unravel there. So if you can maybe come up with a more concise something, an amendment that you'd like to ask Councillor Gartner, or maybe we put forward at that time. But I'll go to Councillor Gilliland first. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Just some quick comments about what I'm hearing around the table. With what's before us today, it really speaks to engaging with third parties. So originally the funding was being town-led events, and now this is, reverting to consulting with third parties. And so it's just kind of like, what are we trying to achieve here? What really is the end goal? And I'm trying to understand, like, if we are going to move forward, we've had this DEI that we've just passed. We're trying to really shed light on a diversity and inclusion. We have an anti-racism task force. Hopefully, maybe that'll evolve into something that's more diversity inclusion. I really think the greatest benefit is allocating funds to the actual cultural and recreation department or events rather section to allow to facilitate the growth in this area, specifically with that plan that we have just passed. So yeah, I'm in total favor of that. But I'm just really confused with what this means by support. And maybe through Mr. Mayor to Ms. McDougall, how do you interpret that?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly when the notation of, to me, support and promote, there's a few things I've just made note of, just to try to gather my thoughts, where we, as far as support, and this goes to any community organization that wishes to seek support from the town, this is our interpretation of what support looks like. And it would be that the town is in a role of facilitation. They facilitate connections with applicable departments. So if somebody, an organization is calling in to organize, plan something, clearly they need help to facilitate. Where do I go for a bylaw, a permit, and so on. So we facilitate those conversations. We generate collaborative opportunities, i.e. example is coordinating between cultural groups. So if they have a like conversation, we facilitate those conversations, whether it's through our cultural partners initiatives, but we feel we're that center piece that ties together. We answer how-to questions in support of local events. What does it look like when I host an event at Town Park? What are the how-tos to all of that? We're supportive in that nature. We provide information on funding opportunities, grant and sponsorship that the town can do, but there's other initiatives locally that potentially organizations can pursue, other provincial funding even that they could potentially pursue. We provide a centralized landing page for cultural events, similar to Culture Days, where local organizations can provide us details when we're happy to share on a centralized landing page, such as Culture Days. We did this last year. We did it for Black History Month as well, where it's a centralized landing page for marketing and promotion of local organizations. We share event details via different marketing mediums through support. We either can share links to their websites or other local events, and then integrate cultural groups initiatives into existing town events. And as I mentioned earlier, we do our best to facilitate within our existing resources opportunities to support a local cause, a local initiative where we can within our unit. So to me, I take that support. It isn't always dollars. It could be in-kind staff time. It could be our social pages. It could be our websites. So support to me isn't just a dollar figure, a dollar amount, in my opinion. So there's a variety of reasons and how I would interpret that. So when I would report back to council on what was done previously and what could be done going forward, I'm going to be including all of not just what's spent, but what is about to make it feel inclusive when you walk into a facility, when you look on our website, so that there is that sense of inclusion. So it isn't just a budget to host a singular event. To us, it's a year-round importance. And therefore, we want to apply that in that way. I know I ran on, I apologize, but I hope that helps you where we stand.
Councillor?
Thank you. No, that's great. I mean, it's great to hear that those are the things that we can do. So you're talking about the things that are within your means within staff with the policies that are in place. And obviously this is a new space considering we just passed that diversity inclusion and we want to do more. And I know Shelley Ware has been very good at trying to go outside the box and create these new events. And this is one of them. And we are fortunate to have some third parties who have been very interested and engaged, but at the same time, within these third parties, they have to go through the same hoops as everybody else with the granting opportunities. It's no different from one group to the other, whether it's Ukrainian or Polish or whether or not it's the Pine Tree Potters or whoever. They all have the same hoops that they have to go through in order to get funding for these cultural things. And so from what I'm hearing around here is that maybe there is some opportunities with a granting review of the policies that we have that may focus on, say, allocating rooms or giving discounts or so forth, specific to culture and recreation, the revamp. So maybe really what we should be focusing on is that review. And do you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall, do you feel that within that review that would really help that support promotion part of what we're feeling, and we have that deficit right now on this issue that we have with growing the diversity inclusion, and not specific to just the Black History Month, but just say as a whole. do you feel that that's something that would be very beneficial and to help moving this aspect of diversity inclusion in our town and how we can collaborate?
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor, I certainly feel that there is a review needed. Prior to even this conversation, I knew that we felt there was limiting factors within the existing criteria. So definitely I could see a revamp being beneficial to a third-party organization to gain access to funding. But I want to reinforce that there's still to us a necessity for the town to deliver in our own way within our own resources. So yes, the revamp of the grant helps by handing funds over for them to deliver as a third party, but we would still feel the need to do our own deliveries and whatever that might look like, in kind or operating an actual event to celebrate, if I may, if that helps. It's two sides of it, in my opinion.
Councillor?
Yes, yeah. No, that definitely helps. And I'm trying to look at it with two different shoes on. So yes, do we need to have maybe a broader look on our own budget within the events, culture, recreation as a town-led event? And that's where I'm leading from one side to the other, because this is more third-party local organization. So maybe there's two things. Obviously, the DEI would focus more on town-led, and maybe there's something you would bring the council back with a budget saying, here's what we want to do and increase the budget to allocate. But on the flip side, we could also really benefit from a revamp of our cultural sponsorships, grants or whatnot in that department. So I think it's probably a two-prong approach. I don't know what that says for this motion. Again, like I'm in favor of what it's saying. I just don't know if this motion changes anything. But I would be open to, I don't know if it's an amendment or a new business or whatever, saying to report back with an updated grant and review system, cultural grant review. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, you've spoken twice, but I did promise I'd come back if you had an amendment to hear that amendment. So if you're just saying the amendment, then I'll let you speak. Go ahead.
That's all I'm going to say. So it's similar to what's sort of been, I think, eluding around the table, Mr. Mayor, that staff report back in July with a summary of past activities and a proposed plan for future years. And, we could fund it if necessary with a draw from the reserves in 2023. We can decide that in July when it comes back. But this will provide a report back review. Summary of the past. I think that would help us understand where we are and a look of proposed for the future. And then from there, we can decide as next steps. And I believe this will avoid disappointing people and leaving this motion ambiguous, because I believe we all believe in it. It's Black History Month 2023 and the intention of it, but we still need something back. And I feel this will help. So I hope that that will do that.
Someone like to second
my
that?
peers would agree.
Councillor Gallo, thank you. Anyone want to speak to the amendment? Councillor Gallo.
Just quickly, I like it for multiple reasons. First, we're getting a history on what we did. We're getting a plan on what we propose to do, and it's in a form where the public can contribute. And I think we'd achieve all of that with that resolution. And I think as long as the third-party user groups have an opportunity to input either through here or whichever way prior to the report, I think that's vitally important so that we're all on the same page well in advance of next year. And I think that would be very beneficial. And I think that's moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Any others to the amendment? Call the vote. Oh, we're just going to make sure we got it right. Put it up.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, would you mind reading? And I can't. It's too small for me to see. Sorry, could somebody read this to me? Thanks.
The amendment specifically had the date. Otherwise, I think it's fine. Just with the date. There we go. Is that Councillor Gallo, seconder? Councillor Humphreys? Councillor Gilliland, did you want to speak to the amendment? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall, does that give staff enough time to come up with the plan part? I understand the history, but the planning, I mean, it's a tall order between now and July. I think you probably want to do some consultation as well with the anti-racism task force as well. And I believe you have a diversity inclusion committee of staff, the staff level as well. Is this an appropriate time frame for you, or what would be, in your opinion?
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor, based on the council reporting cycle and report requirements, it would be tight, I think, but yet happy to bring you what I can in July. Obviously, timing for yourselves is important to try to get something before you, and especially if a need of budget is expected. We may not have it fully vetted, fully refined by July, but I could probably have something with regards to a goal, an objective by that point. And again, it may not be fully vetted because consulting with different groups as well could be challenging to meet that coordination. But I respect the timing you're all under, and I want to get this before you. If September works, that's lovely. That'd be perfect for me. But I also respect the circumstances you're all in. So I can bring you what I can for July.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I guess my last question would be, are you able to consult with the anti-racism task force? Because I don't know if they've had their last meeting or not for the term or not. Anybody know?
Ms. McDougall?
I'm
No. They meet monthly, and I think that they're not, although they don't meet for the summer, correct? They're done. Their last meeting is in June, so they still meet. They still have 2 more meetings.
Okay. All right. So they will have an opportunity to hopefully comment. You'll be able to hopefully get some feedback in time. So understanding that it'll be pretty broad, and obviously changes will be happening to it probably from that report in July with that expectation. Thanks.
Thank you. Call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gardner, you want to speak to the amendment?
I can't read the amendment. So would you read it to me, please?
It is that staff report back in July with a summary of past activities related to Black History Month and proposed plans for the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is that all you'd like?
Yes, thanks.
You're welcome. I'll call the vote. That carries. Back to the main motion as amended. Any other comments or questions? I will call the vote. That carries. Council, we have a bit of a dilemma. Normally, we would take a break at 9 o'clock. We're at 9:30. We have one more motion to deal with. Do we want to just power through, or do we want to take that break?
Power through. Power through, Mr. Mayor.
Power through?
Power through.
All right, let's keep going. We got one more motion. Councillor Gilliland, this one's yours. Would you like to move it?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Move as is.
Yes, please.
Seconder, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gilliland, floor is yours.
Thank you. I think the motion is pretty self-explanatory, but I do have a few words to say about it. I think it's a really important topic. Phragmites, it's been recognized as one of Canada's worst invasive plants that has threatened the existence of meaningful wetlands and ecosystems. Its impact on wetlands is particularly significant, standing up to 18 feet tall. It's huge. It's so dense that it crowds out other species by displacing native vegetation such as cattails, bulrushes, and sedges, thus negatively affecting important wildlife and habitat. Endangered species at risk include the king rail, smallmouth salamander, the Blanding's turtle, and the bob-bean bok moth, just to name a few. Additional observations of Phragmites' effects on the broader environment include impacts on ecosystem health, human health, safety, infrastructure, and services. These dense monoculture standouts outcompetes native vegetation for space, nutrients, and sunlight. It can invade agricultural fields, waterfronts, and transportation hydro corridors. It can impede farming, block drainage ditches, damage asphalt through its rhizome growth, obscure views for landowners, and cause road safety issues by obstructing roadway sightlines. The dead stalks that are left behind each fall are dry and also combustible, which can increase the risk of fire and pose a health and safety risk to surrounding properties and infrastructure. Additionally, Dr. Blair Feltmate, chair of the Climate Change Adaptation Project, says communities need to adapt or risk billions of dollars in chain damage. He points out that flooding is a major contributor to this risk and expressed that the most important focus on climate mitigation is to protect our wetlands and encourage restoration of urban wetlands and water channels where possible. Essentially, Phragmites is an aggressive plant that spreads quickly and releases toxins from its roots into the soil to hinder or kill surrounding plants, chokes out native habitat, leaving our wetlands pretty much dead and useless. Clearly, there's a reason why this plant was crowned the worst invasive species in Canada, and I truly believe that it'd be very beneficial to get a handle on the areas of concern here in Aurora and to learn what recommendations staff will present to help remedy the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councilor Gallo?
I'd just like to hear from staff and weigh in on what's before us.
In Councilor Gallo, I mean, I appreciate it. Can we just a little bit more specific? Because I just don't want to just give, not that I don't like Mr. Downey when he has conversations, but I don't want him to enter into the debate. So if there was just something a little bit more specific other than just his thoughts, is there something just a little bit more specific?
Well, his thoughts on Phragmites and if staff have already been doing anything, what's the update? Is this helpful? Can we accomplish this?
Thank you. I just wanted to get that out of you. Mr. Downey.
He reads my mind. He understands.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Councillor Gillian and I had quite a conversation with regards to this and have for quite some time. Phragmites is a problem, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse, we have in the past, particularly through the Arboretum, attempted to control it. They've cut it. They've dug it up. They've smothered it. They've done everything they possibly can to try to limit or the spread or kill this particular plant. It's a complicated plant because it spreads three ways: through seeds, through rhizomes, and through actual cut portions of the plant itself. Will root off again. So it's an extremely difficult plant to try to control. We have done some research on it. We're not quite sure what the answer is, but this report will give us an opportunity to bring this issue forward to council, identify areas within the town of where it is, and also outline some measures in which to perhaps control it. One of our major obstacles with regards to this is our limitations in the control. And what I mean by that is it could very well effectively be controlled by spraying. However, we're not allowed to spray. We have a bylaw against that. So that would take a repealing of the bylaw or something along those lines. And perhaps then we look at a pilot area or something along those lines. But this is an information report coming back to council on where it is and some methods in which to control it.
Councillor?
That's it. Good. I'm in support of it. Well-structured notice of motion and good direction.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I really thank Mr. Downey for describing how hard it is. Not only, I mean, to eradicate it, that would be a dream, but the Arboretum folks have been, as Mr. Downey said, doing everything. And I don't know if you've been for a walk in the Arboretum recently. There's just so much there. So if there's anything that we could do, that would be great. My understanding is that the Arboretum has tried everything, and short of what you said, Mr. Downey, it's an impossible situation. But it does do a lot of damage. And so we'd really appreciate knowing if there is anything we can do, how much it would cost, the potential success rate, and if it is allowed, if the government would allow us. Perhaps other municipalities have asked that in the name of protecting so much, if we could use a spray that is not allowed. Mr. Downey, is it true that golf courses are allowed to use spray if it's under the care of, I guess, a specialist?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, golf courses can use chemical and so can agricultural establishments. So they are permitted. However, municipalities are not.
Council?
Okay, so maybe that's another motion to the government asking if for invasive species that are so damaging, if we could use the chemical. Do you know if anybody else has, even broached this?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I'm not sure what the research tells us and who has tried and what they've tried, but that is the purpose of the report, is to come back to council.
Okay.
As many options as possible, and then perhaps decide on a strategy.
Thank you. And thank you so much. And, if golf courses are allowed to do it, then I think certainly municipalities, in the name of protecting the environment, should be able to use the chemical, but I'm not sure what kind of damage that would do. Thanks very much. Oh, when would you be bringing it back, Mr. Downey? Through you, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Downey, do you have a time frame?
So through Mr. Mayor, it would be for this term of council. That's what we'd like to be able to do. If it gets approved this evening, then I will be talking to staff, and if I'm not able to bring it back in this term because of the research we have to do, I'll certainly be informing council of that. But what that would be my expectation.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll go back to Councillor Gilliland to wrap up if she'd like.
Thank you. And I appreciate the comments around the table. And I'm very grateful for staff's engagement in this as well. And obviously we recognize there's a sense of urgency. So the quicker that we can get on this, the better. On a side note, I've been participating on an FCM climate summit, and one of the major topics was protecting natural capital assets, and protecting wetlands was one of the big, huge topics that we were all discussing and also acquiring funding. So I'm always advocating trying to push for other levels of governments to at least assist in some funding in this Phragmites, because we recognize that protecting wetlands are important, and this is a huge threat. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I think we need to ask the federal government to give back some of our tax dollars back to our municipalities so we can use it and utilize them. So let's get on that. All vote. that carries. New business. Councillor Gallo. Councillor Kim. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gilliland.
This on? Okay, thank you. I had a question for staff just to follow up on an email that I received from a resident about some garbage in the back of their property on some was going on their property from a retail area. And I was wondering if there was a follow-up on that. I understand that there was some lagging in communication or problems with the phone system. And I just wanted to, at least according to the resident, I was just wondering if you could just let me know whether or not this has been followed up.
Ms. Van Looyen? I was looking at staff to ask about it, but Ms. Van Looyen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I am not aware, but I will follow up with staff tomorrow with our bylaw team and provide an update.
Councillor?
Thank you very much. I apologize. I was speaking with Ms. Ray about it. And so perhaps maybe that didn't cross-reference, but the address was just for your reference. I'll just say it's on Cypress, and your staff will have the information about that file. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess secondly, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but we did have some conversation about the cultural grant review. And, maybe this is an appropriate time to get the ball rolling so we're not stalling and, put a motion and have staff report back with the review of the cultural grant and recreation grant, if I may.
Councillor, what are you asking for? Sorry.
Just a report back with a review of the cultural and recreation grant policy, I guess if that's what it's called.
Seconder? Unless Ms. McDougall tells me it's substantive, but.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if it's assuming it would come back in July.
No.
Okay.
No specific time.
Okay.
It's just to get the ball rolling.
Oh, for sure. Okay.
To get the direction going. So there is a review that works.
Yep.
Okay. I'll take it if there's a seconder. Is there a seconder? Councillor Gallo, thank you. Can we get that on the screen? Take a sec. Good.
If that's the technical term for the policy. Okay.
Councillor Gallo. Thank you. Call the vote. Carries. Councillor, any other new business?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, new business?
It's not exactly new business, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's important. Hopefully, I'll start. Hopefully you'll let me finish. Yom HaShoah is the Holocaust Memorial Day. It begins tomorrow evening and goes to the following evening in an attempt to destroy a race and a culture. 6 million Jewish people were murdered during World War II. And in 2021, we had the highest rate of anti-Semitic acts in 40 years. So thank you for letting me say that. And also, it is the National Day of Mourning for workers killed, injured, or suffered illness as a result of a workplace incident. Every year I think of this because I think about students, high school, college students taking summer jobs, doing roofing or other jobs that may be dangerous and perhaps don't have the proper instructions and education, and they die. So for all those who are in this terrible position and their families. I think it's worth remembering. With respect to new business, I just wanted to know about flipping properties. Do we have any policy that speaks to this? I guess, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Muno.
Again, Mr. Runa, I don't think we do, because I think that that's just part of living in a capitalistic societies, that you can buy something and sell it. But I'll let Mr. Ramuno, if he wants to expand upon that.
I'm thinking more of business properties. I thought we had something.
That's true, but just to the earlier discussion, I mean, when council approves a zoning bylaw, it rests with the land and not with the actual owner.
Yeah. Councillor?
Thank you. I'm just going to think on that. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor. Mr. CEO, did you want to add something to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going to add that actually, I believe there's some provisions in the last federal budget that are about flipping personal home in less than a year. So, or resident.
Yeah. Thank you. And that was good to see and hear, but I'm thinking about maybe also business properties, employment land properties. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
No, that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, your business? No? Okay. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Humphreys. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great week.